Chapter 6. Learning. One of the most remarkable things about humans, and indeed all animals, is our ability to learn. Learning allows us to adapt, survive, and thrive in an ever-changing world. Psychologists define learning as a relatively permanent change in behavior or knowledge that results from experience. In this lecture, we will explore the three major forms of learning studied in psychology: classical conditioning, operant conditioning, and observational learning. Each offers unique insight into how experiences shape behavior, from simple reflexes to complex social interactions. Classical conditioning. We begin with classical conditioning, discovered by the Russian physiologist Ivan Pavlov. Pavlov was studying digestion when he noticed something peculiar. Dogs began to salivate not only when food was placed in their mouths, but even when they heard the footsteps of the experimenter bringing the food. This observation led Pavlov to explore how associations form. Classical conditioning occurs when a neutral stimulus becomes associated with a stimulus that naturally produces a response. The process looks like this. Before conditioning, food, an unconditioned stimulus, naturally produces salivation, an unconditioned response. A neutral stimulus, such as a bell, produces no salivation on its own. During conditioning, the bell is repeatedly paired with food. After conditioning, the bell alone, now a conditioned stimulus, triggers salivation, a conditioned response. Pavlov's discovery demonstrated how powerful associations can be. Classical conditioning explains many everyday experiences, from why certain smells trigger memories to how phobias develop. For example, if a child is bitten by a dog, the sight of dogs may later produce fear, even if no danger is present. Several key principles shape classical conditioning. Acquisition, the initial learning of the association. Extinction, the weakening of the response when the conditioned stimulus is no longer paired with the unconditioned stimulus. Spontaneous recovery, the reappearance of a conditioned response after a pause. Generalization, responding to stimuli similar to the conditioned one. Discrimination, learning to distinguish between similar stimuli. Classical conditioning shows us how organisms learn to anticipate and prepare for events. Operant conditioning. While classical conditioning involves automatic responses, operant conditioning, studied extensively by B.F. Skinner, focuses on voluntary behaviors. Skinner built on the work of Edward Thorndike, whose law of effects stated that behaviors followed by satisfying outcomes are more likely to be repeated, while behaviors followed by unpleasant outcomes are less likely. Skinner studied this through experiments with rats and pigeons in Skinner boxes. Animals could press a lever or peck a key to receive food, allowing Skinner to analyze how consequences shape behavior. Operant conditioning uses reinforcement and punishment. Positive reinforcement, adding something pleasant to increase behavior, giving a child praise for doing homework. Negative reinforcement, removing something unpleasant to increase behavior, taking painkillers to remove a headache. Positive punishment, adding something unpleasant to decrease behavior, getting a speeding ticket. Negative punishment, removing something pleasant to decrease behavior, losing TV privileges. An important detail is that reinforcement always increases behavior, while punishment always decreases it. Positive and negative simply refer to whether something is added or taken away. Skinner also studied reinforcement schedules. Behavior is learned differently depending on whether rewards are given continuously or intermittently. For example, fixed ratio schedules reward after a set number of responses. Variable ratio schedules reward after an unpredictable number of responses, like slot machines, creating strong, persistent behavior. Fixed interval schedules reward the first response after a set period of time. Variable interval schedules reward at unpredictable times, producing steady responding. Operant conditioning is everywhere, in classrooms, workplaces, parenting, and even in our own habits. It shows how consequences shape not just animals in laboratories, but human lives every day. Observational learning. The third major type of learning is observational learning, also called social learning, championed by Albert Bandura. Bandura argued that much of what we learn comes not from direct experience, but from watching others. His famous Bobo doll experiment demonstrated this. Children watched adults behave aggressively toward an inflatable doll. Later, when given the doll themselves, the children imitated the aggression, especially if the adult's behavior had been rewarded. Bandura identified 4 processes in observational learning. Attention. The learner must pay attention to the model. Retention. The behavior must be remembered. Reproduction. The learner must be able to reproduce the behavior. Motivation. There must be some reason to imitate the behavior. Observational learning explains why role models, media, and culture are so powerful. Children learn not only from what parents say, but from what they do. Media violence, for instance, has been shown to influence aggressive behavior through modeling. Putting it all together. So, what does Chapter 6 teach us? Learning is not just about memorizing facts. It is about how organisms adapt to their environments. Classical conditioning shows how associations form, allowing us to predict events. Operant conditioning shows how consequences shape voluntary actions. Observational learning shows how behavior spreads through imitation and modeling. Learning is fundamental to survival. It allows animals to avoid danger, humans to acquire language, societies to transmit culture, and individuals to grow and change across a lifetime. Closing thoughts. As we reflect on learning, we should remember that psychology's goal is not just to study behavior, but to apply that knowledge. By understanding how learning works, we can improve education, parenting, therapy, and even our own personal habits. In short, Chapter 6 reminds us that learning is the engine of adaptation. It is the process by which the past informs the present, shaping who we are and who we can become.